friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff, and today we are talking about one of my new favorite crafts, which is sublimation. So sublimation has been around in the business world for a long time, but in the last couple of years it's really picked up steam with everyday crafters, and today I want to talk a little bit about what sublimation is. So basically, sublimation is a printer craft. So you will print a design on a special printer, and then you will take that design and either put it on or wrap it around a blank, apply heat, and your design will transfer. So you can see here I have a tumbler that I made, and it is sublimated, and it has absolutely no lines like you would have with vinyl. You can't feel it's raised, and it's completely permanent. And for a lot of blanks, it's completely washable, which is great. So if you're tired of your heat transfer vinyl peeling or cracking or not lasting a lot of washes, sublimation can help. So today in this video, we're gonna talk a little bit about what sublimation is, what you need to be able to do it, and then we're gonna make a really simple mug to show how to do it. And then I'm planning on doing a bunch of other videos to show more detailed crafts, and then I also have my blog, which has tons of tutorials already on sublimation. So you can go ahead and get all of those links down in the description. So for now, let's talk about what sublimation is. So you might be asking, what makes sublimation so great? So like I said, it's permanent. And what I've got here are 3 different onesies that I've made using the same sort of image. So this one here, this little new to the crew shirt, is made with iron-on vinyl. So the iron-on actually sits on top of the material of this onesie. There's an adhesive on the back. You apply heat, that adhesive gets hot, gets sticky, and it applies to this. Now this is a great project if you've got a Cricut or a Silhouette. You can easily make this project, but after washing this 20 times, you may start to notice that the vinyl starts to peel up a little bit, it starts to crack. There are ways to make it last longer, but it really is sort of temporary in the grand scheme of things. So if you want something more permanent, you're going to want to use sublimation. Now, if you're familiar with a Cricut, you may know Infusible Ink. Infusible Ink is basically a sheet that you cut with your Cricut, and then you apply it using a heat source, and it is permanent. So I made that same file with Infusible Ink. So you can see here that you get a more colorful graphic depending on the type of infusible ink you're using. With iron-on, it's generally single color or double color if you layer. Sometimes you can find patterned iron-on, but your options are very limited. Same thing with infusible ink. You are just limited to the types of infusible ink that they have out there, the different colors, different patterns. This one is very cute. And now you can see that this is permanent. There is no way that this is going to peel off, wash out. You can put it in the laundry, you can dry it, and it will stay the same, which is great. So Infusible Ink is a sublimation product. It's basically sublimation ink on a sheet. You cut it with your Cricut and you apply it using heat. So if you've done some Infusible Ink, you're already started with sublimation. Third, there's actual sublimation. So this is a very similar file I have in my shop here, but it has a pattern and it's got this background behind it, and it just is a little bit more fun than just using infusible ink. This I printed with my sublimation printer and then applied it using a heat press. Again, this is not going to peel, it's not going to fade, it's not going to crack or ruin the garment. This will look this good well after your baby fits in this onesie. I mean, we all know how fast babies grow, so that's not saying much, but you know what I mean. This is definitely a great project. I love sublimation because you can use 4-color inks, so your possibilities for images are endless. With iron-on, you're stuck with a single color or 2 colors if you layer, that sort of thing. You can also do photos, you can do all sorts of things. So sublimation is very versatile. So what can you make with sublimation? Well, the possibilities these days feel endless. I swear, every day a new blank is coming out, but here's the key. The blank that you're putting sublimation ink on has to be either made with polyester or it needs to have a polyester coating. So this is really important. It's what allows that chemical process to happen from the ink changing from the paper onto your blank. So if you just go and buy a mug at the dollar store, the ink isn't going to transfer because there's no coating on that mug for it to actually adhere to. So if you're looking for apparel, you want probably 65–75% polyester and up. You can go a little bit lower than that, but you're going to get kind of a vintage faded look. And then if you go much lower than that, you're just not going to see a transfer. And then if you want, for hard products, you want it to have a polyester, a poly coating. And so a lot of blanks will say for sublimation, built for sublimation. And I will link to my favorite blanks down in the description as well. So there's all sorts of apparel. There's onesies and t-shirts and hoodies and hats and socks and all sorts of fun things. There's also hard blanks, so things like tumblers, which are super popular right now, mugs, coasters, these art panels, all sorts of fun things. So at its core, sublimation is a chemical process. You print special sublimation ink on special sublimation paper, and then when you apply heat to that ink, it turns from a solid on the paper to a gas and then fuses back as a solid onto your blank. So really, it's science, but all you need to know is that it works. So to do sublimation, you're going to need a sublimation printer. There are two options you can do here. You can use a sublimation printer like a Sawgrass, which is a purpose-built sublimation printer designed to do these types of crafts. Or you can convert an Epson printer, an EcoTank printer. And I have a video on how to do this, so I can go ahead and link that to you. It's actually very simple. You just buy the sublimation ink, you put it in your printer. Okay, there are a few more steps than that, but really it's very simple, and you can have a much more low-cost version of a sublimation printer. That being said, a purpose-built sublimation printer is just going to do the job better. You can get really good results with this, but a real sublimation printer is going to have a lot fewer headaches. This sublimation printer that I've converted here, you have to work on color management and a few other things. You have to make sure you're printing once a week, or your print heads might get clogged. So there are some differences between the two. I've linked to a blog post comparing different printers in the description, and soon I will have a video comparing a Sawgrass and an Epson printer. You will also need a heat source. A heat source is anything from a heat press to a mug press to a convection oven. There's lots of different things you can press your images with. I have just about everyone under the sun, so if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. Today for our project, I'm going to be using this Cricut mug press just because it's really easy and simple, but you can also use a traditional heat press that presses down for flat objects. You can use a tumbler press, which makes these tall tumblers. For a lot of blanks, you can use a convection oven where you wrap something in shrink wrap, stick it in the oven, and it works. You can use a Cricut Easy Press, although I think you need the Cricut Easy Press 2 or 3, which goes all the way up to 400 because you really need that high heat for the sublimation process to work. So if you're going to get started, you need the printer, you need the heat source, and then you're also going to need sublimation paper. So the sublimation paper is specially coated, again, to hold the ink properly before you go to put it on your blank. I've actually tried using copy paper, and while it technically did work, it bled very badly through the back of the paper, and two, it didn't have nearly a strong and bright transfer. So you want sublimation paper, and then you are also going to need a few other things. So to start, you're going to need heat-resistant tape. This is my very fancy tape holder. You don't need this, but it's basically tape that you can use to tape down your image onto whatever your blank is so that it will stay when you go to press it. You may want to have a pair, wherever they went. Oh, apparently I only have one, of heat-resistant gloves. I will grab this before I do my project. Heat-resistant gloves are great for pulling a project out of an oven or heat press without burning yourself, which is very important. And then you're also going to want some sort of mat that you can set your project onto when it's done. So since I'm just making a mug, I'm using the small Cricut Easy Press mat, but I also have much larger spaces, so if I need to put something larger on it, I can. Okay, so I think that is a very quick overview of the basics of sublimation, printing, and crafting, so let's go and make a project. Okay, so let's make a mug. It's one of the easiest projects you can make if you have a mug press. You can also do a simple project like a t-shirt or a onesie for one of your first projects. I suggest starting simple. I think a lot of people sometimes get into some of the more advanced sublimation techniques, which I'm not even going to cover in this video, and they're wondering why they're having such a hard time with it. So I suggest starting simple. So for this project, I'm going to make a mug, and I'm going to use a transfer that I purchased off of design bundles. You can go ahead and start making your own artwork, but again, that's sort of advanced. So I think it's easier to actually just start with something simple that you didn't design, unless you're an artist, so that you can get a feel for how sublimation works. So this is the image that we're going to be using. It's a little cactus image, and it's going to wrap around our mug. I printed it on my Epson EcoTank printer. I want to talk more about software and how to print and all these things, but it is a long and complicated process. So I'm going to link to some tutorials for how to use different software, as well as how to do color management, because that is a video on its own and it's coming soon. But if I took time to do it in this video, it would be way too long. And I want to just show you how easy it is to make a project so that we can, so that you can understand just how fun sublimation crafting can be. So here's our image, and here's the mug. So you want to start, which of course I forgot, That's why I have everything behind me. You want to start by lint rolling your mug. You can also use rubbing alcohol, but either works. You just want to make sure there's no lint and no dust on your mug, because the heat press gets hot enough that it can actually sublimate the color from the dust into your mug. If you notice you have little, especially blue spots, that's what's happened. You haven't cleaned your mug well enough. So, all right, we got our mug clean. Once you clean your mug, you don't want to wait too long because there's dust in the air and it can settle on your mug. My heat press just heated up. So here's our image. And one thing you want to do when you print your image is you want to reverse it. With this, it's not so important, but if I had text here, you would definitely notice that I'm missing, the text is backwards, so you will need to mirror your image. That's different depending on whatever design software you're using, and again, I will go into that in future videos. So to start here, we're going to place our transfer around the mug like this. So because most heat presses can't get under the handle, most designs are not as wide as they don't wrap all the way around. So you want to try and center it so that your heat transfer is all the way around the mug, and then you can secure it with a piece of tape here on either side. You want to get close to the bottom as you can and close to the top as you can. My transfer is actually a little bit short because it's just white at the top, but if your transfer is a full mug wrap, you want to make sure it goes all the way to the top when you trim it. All right, so you really want your design to be as flat as possible around this mug, because if you have any gap, it can do what's called off-gassing, whereas the heat gets in there and it makes your image blurry, not cute. So we have now our image, and you'd think it would be good to go, but no, always add more tape. So I'm going to add tape along the bottom here. The reason I love this little tape dispenser is because when you turn it, it just cuts little pieces of tape for you. So I'll link this in the comments. It's kind of a goofy looking thing, but I really like it. Let's see, I'll do a few more on the edges here. Really, you can never go wrong with more tape. I think every time I've been like, oh, I could have used more tape, but I've never ever said to myself, you used too much tape. So let's go ahead and wrap this up here. Get a double piece of tape here. You can see that I'm rolling it to the edge because you really want that nice crisp edge to your tape, or to your mug. Again, working our way around. This will just ensure that your mug image is as tight to the mug as possible. And just going to tape. For the top, I'm actually not going to tape on this image, only because one, it's really flat against the edge here because it's slightly smaller than the cup, and two, because it's white. So if it gasses a little bit at the top, I don't think it's going to affect my mug. We'll see. Could turn out terribly and I'd have to refilm this video, but we're going to go with it. Add more tape at the top though if your image is a full color image that goes all the way around. Now if I put this in my mug press as is, it would probably be okay because this is very thick, high quality sublimation paper from Hippo. However, the last thing I want is for ink to get on the inside of my press, because then it will press onto anything else that I press in the future. Not cool. So I have these little pieces of butcher paper, which I'm now going to tape around the edge. This one I've cut to size already. I buy it in big sheets or rolls, and then I cut it down. So you'll basically just want to tape a little bit of butcher paper around your image so that you don't worry about that getting that ink onto your press, which I have done. Not on this one, but on my big press. So just see how we've got this here. And this one doesn't have to be as fully taped as everything else. It's just to protect the press. Okay, so my heat press is to temperature, which is just very hot. It's Cricut mug press temperature. I can say that I've made a lot of mugs in this mug press and they've all turned out perfectly. So whatever the setting they've got going on in here is pretty good. So you're going to go ahead and stick your mug inside. Kind of doing this from an odd angle, so hopefully it's okay. And then push down the thing. You want to kind of center your mug here and press down. Now when you do this, the Cricut mug press is going to count down for as long as it takes. It's about 6 minutes usually. If you're using another heat press, you may have to set the time and temperature. I will go into that more with some of the other presses I have in future videos, but for this one, it takes about 6 minutes, so we'll come back when it's all done. So once your machine beeps, you can go ahead and open it up here. And this is where I like to take my gloves. You can actually see a little steam coming off of that right now. And then that way I know when I'm pulling this very hot mug out of here that I'm not going to burn myself. And obviously I'm doing this at kind of a weird angle because of the video. So one of the things I like to do is let it cool for just a few minutes before I take the paper off. That way, if it is still actually hot enough to sublimate, if I shift the paper or move the transfer, then it's not going to actually ghost my image. You can technically take it off at any point, but that's my little tip for waiting for it to cool down for just a minute. So we're going to let it do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so this has been cooling for a little while, and we can go ahead and take the transfer off now. I really like these heat gloves. They're not the most attractive gloves, but they work really well. You can go ahead and start by taking off the paper here. You just want to use this paper once, so go ahead and toss it once you pull that off. And then you can go ahead and take off the design. So a lot of times I'll start by peeling off that tape off the bottom. Of course it's going to stick to me. Just get it all off here. You know, it's not perfect even if you're a crafter. There we go. There we go. And then you can peel back the design itself. My goodness, this is being very difficult for me today. There we go. Okay, now you can see how easily it actually comes off, and you can see how cute this mug turned out. And this is absolutely permanent. There is nothing that will take this off except if you wash it in the dishwasher on sanitize. I've actually done that, and it will desublimate your image if you do that. So go ahead and just wash it on normal. You can put it in the dishwasher and you have a super cute mug. So you can see how easy it is to actually make this mug once you have all the equipment that you need. Print out your transfer, put it on your mug, put it in the mug press, boom, you've got a cute mug, great for gifts, and it's just one of the many, 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 many things you can make using sublimation. So those are the basics to sublimation. You need a printer, you need paper, you need special ink, and you need a heat press, and you need a blank. And putting all those things together, you can make all sorts of crafts. I have many more sublimation tutorials planned, so go ahead and like and subscribe to this channel if you want my help. I'm always willing to listen to comments and questions if you have them, so go ahead and leave them. If you have any problems or issues, I would love to help you get them sorted. I also have a Facebook group with Angie Holden from the Country Sheep Cottage called Sublimation Made Simple, which I will link in the description below so that you can come join us over on Facebook. It's a great place to get help, to ask questions, to meet other people doing sublimation crafting, to find blanks, all sorts of things. So go ahead and join there. And again, if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I can't wait to keep sublimating with you.